And we are live. Hello, everyone. How is it going? Welcome to episode 2 of the Worthybody Podcast. I have another one of my best friends here, Adam Myers. He is a great athlete, really strong dude, and we just want to talk to you guys about fitness and things we've learned throughout our careers. And we're gonna start off with a bang, man. What are your numbers, bro? Let people know. What do you do in the weight room? What's your best?
So big three. Only one I peaked out and actually attempted like a true max out was bench, and that was 365.
Okay.
And that was in college. That was going to senior year college. So that's where all my best numbers came from.
Yeah.
So squat, I was dealing with some back issues that I didn't really want to get too heavy, so I would just do 405 for speed reps. And the goal was no longer to go up in weight. It was more just move it as quickly as possible. That's where I felt the most comfortable. Like, it was heavy enough that I wasn't hurting myself, but it was still enough weight that I was getting good work in, good volume in with it. And then deadlift, for throwing, you only deadlift for fun. Like, you don't really train deadlifts. So I didn't do a block, but I pulled the 545 conventional the one day after practice just for fun. So just to see what that was.
So it's 545 for fun.
Mm-hmm.
You did that? Okay.
So, but
I mean, how crazy that sounds.
So that was when my strength was really good, and I just kind of wanted to see, because deadlifting is cool, but you don't get to do it a whole lot for like sports specific training and stuff like that.
That's
so
true.
Those would be what I consider my big three.
Gotcha. Now, just talking about the deadlift, for a sports type of aspect, got a lot of athletes that watch this channel. Do you think, let's say you play football, you play basketball, track, things that we know things about, is it necessary to deadlift?
That's a really good question. I think it depends what variation you're going for. Mm-hmm. So anything sports specific, especially with the compound movements, they kind of get dissected. So like, that's when you can get into the argument, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know like squat depth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's the same argument. So when you're talking about the compound lifts, depending on what sport you play, that could, if you think of it as a tool, each of the big three is a tool, it just depends on how you use it type thing.
That's so true.
So for deadlifting specifically, like, it's a great strength building movement. You get a lot of benefits out of like your core, your posterior chain and stuff like that. But as far as translating to power on a field or court, there's probably, Olympic lifting would probably be the more ideal choice for athletes. There's a lot more uses to it, and you're building a lot more speed. So that's the one argument I would say, and this is just regurgitating information that I've heard people who know more than me talk about it with. Yeah. The one argument that seems to stand true is most of the time when you're getting in heavy deadlifts, you're moving the weight slowly, and moving weight slowly for sports isn't always the best fit.
It really comes down to speed. And for me, like, people ask me all the time, like, I play sports, I play this, they give me a DM on Instagram, or like, what should I be doing? And if you want to jump higher, you want to run faster, you got to hang clean, power clean, all the Olympic lifts, snatches. But the issue with high school kids in the Olympic lifts is I can teach someone how to bench press in one day. I can teach someone how to squat in one day. Right. I cannot teach someone how to do hang cleans properly in a reasonable amount of time.
Right.
So that's the issue. And I struggle even trying to tell people what to do, because if we're talking on Instagram, how do I tell him if his form's okay?
It's too much.
It's way too much. It took me, I was a D1 high jumper.
Mm-hmm.
My hang cleans did not get good until my coach, I needed individual time for that.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's a technical movement. It's almost like anything that's its own sport in the Olympics. So Olympic weightlifting particularly, like, I would recommend if it's something that interests you, or even if you are just interested in that for the sports performance side of it, definitely involve a coach and get some real coaching, not some, asking somebody or even like your high school strength coach, depending on the, actual knowledge of that person.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
And a lot of guys are really good, like with variations, even like the hang clean, like stuff that's strictly power building. But if you want to get into like a full clean, or you're pressing over your head and stuff like that, like real weight, it's very, very smart to involve an actual strength coach with that sort of stuff. It's too much technique to pack into a little amount of time. So
I think it's almost like, even if you think you're athletic, if you're cleaning 225, that's when I started thinking like, oh, this dude's an athlete. Like that is a skill, that is strength, that is everything. And it's one fluid movement.
It's crazy because
you need that explosiveness.
That's a good number for like a normal person, but like a 225 clean for somebody who knows Olympic lifting is like very basic. And that's the freaky part. Like you could be really, really strong, especially in compound movements.
Yep.
Doesn't necessarily translate to Olympic lifting either. So that's where
that's crazy though, because you're right about that.
It's another example where like, again, I'm sure a lot of people know people that are really strong but maybe not great at sports. That's what it comes down to. Like you could have the strength component behind it, but Olympic lifting is so technically based that you have to have that technique. And this is somebody, I was terrible at Olympic lifting. I sucked at it.
Really?
Yeah, dude. It's a mobility thing for me too. Like, but it was also, I didn't get any real, I mean, neither of us did in high school. Did you get any Olympic? Yeah.
Nothing.
So you get to college,
absolutely nothing.
And now you're working on a legit regimen that's saying you got to do no feet snatches. Or like stuff like that, and you're like, one, what does that mean? And two, how are you supposed to catch in a good position when your body's already developed in a way where your mobility is going to be a little bit tricky for that? So in the period, like I would recommend, I think Olympic lifting, it's something that I wish I was better at. It's something that I know I would have been better at sports at if I was better at.
Yeah.
If you are like even in middle school or something like that, don't go to a CrossFit gym and just ask them how to snatch. Find a real strength coach. Yeah. Say, how can I snatch? How can I clean? That, if you had to pick one thing to get good at to give you a carryover on the field, get good at Olympic lifting.
I'm clipping that because that's going to be a good clip. Jesus Christ, that was good. So let's talk about it. What do you think about ass to grass? We're just talking about growing your legs here.
Oh, growth?
Just for growth. Just for growth. Is it necessary, or do you believe in like, your hamstring touching your calf for a squat for growth? Is that what you need? And I'll give my spin on that too. So.
Yeah, I think squatting to depth is important for a variety of reasons. I think you could mix in partials for growth after you've exhausted yourself with full range of motion reps. That's what I do. That's where I've seen the best growth in my legs from. Again, you can also make the argument of like, now you get into like stuff like hack squat and machines. I think you can get really big legs off of machines. I know a lot of people think that you get better growth off of machines than with compound movements because
I'm one of those people.
I was gonna say you really like.
I'm
you
so
like
big
stuff.
on machines, but yeah.
So for me, I go ass to grass. It's what I'm comfortable with. Makes me feel the best when squatting. In my mind, I think mentally, I validate that rep as a complete rep if I go ass to grass, and that makes me feel good. If you're training for growth, I don't necessarily think you need to make that a priority. It's just something I've been comfortable with, and I don't know. I think that's the best rep. But if you get into half squats, quarter squats, pin squats, stuff on a hack squat, you can really blow your quads up with partials, and it's a good thing to finish with too, especially like high rep partials.
There we
stuff
go.
Like that.
That was a solid answer. I'll give my little 2 cents on it too. So when it comes to ass to grass, I don't think that is 100% necessary for leg growth, but it will help you in so many different ways. There's something that happens to your body when you get full range of motion, because most people do not train their knees in a weak position. And that's the point. If you want stronger knees, you have to train those knees in a weak position. The only way you can do that is if you get full range. And I mean real full range. So I used to not squat ass to grass. My legs still developed, but once I started doing that, next thing you know, all my knee pain is gone. Oh, I wonder why. Because I actually forced my knees to get stronger. It doesn't mean, throw on 405 or 315 and do ass to grass and start with that. No, that means get a comfortable weight. And it took me at 135, mind you. Going all the way down, going all the way up. You actually don't want to go all the way up, but relatively all the way up.
Do a little jump at the top.
Some people, girls do that a lot. They like squat forward. And they go. You can't hyperextend like that. That's a different conversation. But
let's watch the sponsorships here, don't we?
But yeah, it's just doing that, and the more I started doing hack squats and getting my knees over my toes, nothing's wrong with knees over toes if you are strong enough to do it. And the only way to do that is to work on mobility and strengthen yourself in weak positions. And I think that's what's going to take you to the next level, which is going to lead to growth. So long story short, we agree. And you have to understand with fitness, there's so many different ways to grow. And there might be a most optimal way to grow, which we could believe in, but even if there could be a dude that never does dumbbell bench ever in his life, he only does barbell. He's not getting full range doing barbell bench, but he can still have a huge chest. We're not saying it won't make you grow. We're just saying there could be a better way that has some science to back it up. So keep that in mind, and that's what I think about that.
We are very much in line with the way we think about training.
Yeah, we are.
I think
we are.
You're getting into like, if you're talking about strictly bodybuilding, which is technically like you're competitively training for growth at that point. If you look at guys even like C-Bum, like man squats ass to grass, right? Does he need to necessarily? I don't know. I mean, we're not coaching him. So.
Actually, I'm C-Bum's coach. I'm the reason.
Big reveal?
He is big. No, I'm joking.
I'm not necessarily qualified to talk about his training either, but if you look at different athletes across different sports, including bodybuilding, a lot of bodybuilders squat ass to grass. There's also a lot of bodybuilders who will say dumb stuff like, I only squat on a Smith machine. Like, and again,
I think
they're probably bigger than me, so I think it's stupid too. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm just not gonna co-sign that. But
it's like there's a lot when you get into sports specific training and you have a coach who knows what he's talking about, like there's stuff you can go down the rabbit hole into like pre-exhaustion exercises. I think for the average lifter, like if you are like us and we're in high school and we're both just, trying to figure out how do I put on muscle, how do I get...
He's talking about our younger selves. But.
Yeah, let's say you're, I don't know, even if you're not involved in sports or something like that, like you're freshmen, so you're like 13 or 14 years old, and you're just thinking like, what's a good way to start my lifting career, essentially, because that's what you're doing.
I call it a career.
You're laying the foundation if it's something you want to do for the rest of your life, and you can if you do it safely and effectively. So if you want to get big and strong, I would say utilizing compound movements as your pre-exhaustion exercise is probably the best way to do that. Get comfortable squatting, get comfortable benching and deadlifting. And like Kenny's saying, you might see guys at the gym that are really a lot bigger than you, and they're doing partial reps or something like that. You don't know if those guys could have been a lot bigger if they were doing full reps or if they're doing it for purpose. So that's where you kind of have to figure things out for yourself a little bit too. And I think the best way to do that is you get comfortable doing the bread and butter. Yeah. And then as you get more comfortable, if you want to make your training a little more exciting or figure out, tweak and do some experiments on yourself, that's when you can start working in stuff like that. So there's a lot of ways to get big. I think that's the best way.
For me, it's like I don't think a 14-year-old kid, depending if you're Larry Wheels or not, but the average 14-year-old kid does not need to be doing a pin press. Right. Like, we might need to take our bodies to the next level because we, like you said, we exhausted everything else. There's nothing wrong with cheat reps. There's nothing wrong with the cheat curl. But you better have that programmed in. Yeah. And I don't want to see you curl. Why are you doing it? Thank you. Why are you doing it?
The biggest thing that you can boil all of this back to is train with a purpose.
Yep.
So if you're just doing an exercise because it looks cool and you want to try it one time and see if maybe it makes you feel good about yourself or what you feel in your body, that's one thing. But if you're doing cheat curls every week because Larry Wheels is putting up a new video where he's tearing his biceps, then you have to analyze that and say, why am I doing this? So that's where it kind of comes into being smart and making your own decisions, and that's sort of like a life thing. Yeah. But also for lifting, that's a big thing as well. So train with a purpose and make sure it makes sense. And there's a lot of really good, simple, free programs out there and free literature from guys, even like Jim Wendler. Like what I'm doing right now, my lifting regimen is his 5-3-1 stuff. It's very standard. It's mostly compound movements. And it's great. And I've been getting stronger on it every week. It's a progressive overload program with a lot of volume. But his big thing is keeping it simple. You're good at your bread and butter, and then you work an extra stuff for volume. But again, it's with an intent. So that's all really good stuff.
So people, I get question a lot. What is the best rep range to work out in? And for me, I give a very broad answer because the answer is broad. If you were doing 6 to 20 reps, it's gonna work. It don't really matter.
Yeah, anything in there.
Anything kind of.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I say, if and here's the thing.
Yeah.
It has to be those last 2 reps. Are they difficult for you? If so, your body's gonna grow. Mm-hmm. And that's just what I think about it. I could sit there and do 30 reps, but if the last few are just regular reps, I wasted my time.
Right.
And you're better off getting in somewhere in between that 6 to 20 to make it make sense. Because if not, if you go lower than 6, you can't just do 3x3s for the whole program. Like, I know
for the rest of your life.
Helpful, but like, you can't keep going like that. And if you're doing high reps, why you keep doing high reps, bro? You should. It's too light then.
It's hard, man. And this is like, in the same way, I kind of want to walk back what I just said too. There's a lot of good free information out there, but it can also be overwhelming because you'll read 6 different programs and it'll tell you 6 different things. So again, that's kind of where you got to figure out which way do you enjoy training versus what are you seeing results with. So if you're training to feel good about yourself and get a good workout in, those are fun workouts to mix in. And that's back to what I said about in college, like deadlifting for fun. That was just a lift that made me feel good about myself. I wanted to see how strong I was. Yeah. See all these guys going in and pulling 2 plates, and I was like, let's see, we'll see how I do here. So that got me, in the setting. I was like, all right, kind of want to be a little competitive. That's how you did your deadlift PR as well.
Yeah. 505. We're just gonna put it out.
Which is very good. And he was much lighter than me when he did it.
172. Something. Is what it is. Something.
Yeah. But
conventional.
Yeah, that's important too.
It wasn't sumo.
So that's the thing. Like if it's something like that where you want to have a lift to feel good about yourself, that's good. But in that same sense, we didn't go into the gym every week and do that. That's an important thing too. So like Kenny was saying, rep range. I would say for the beginning lifter, if you keep everything sub like 12 to 15, that's probably what I'd recommend. That's great. And that depends if you're taking a deload week, if you're periodizing your trading and stuff like that. Like training periodization is where you sort of break down by week how many reps you're doing and if you're changing. That's something that feeds into progressive overload really, really well. So again, the program I'm on, Jim Wendler does, first week is 3x5, second week is 3x3, third week is 5-3-1 plus, the following week is a deload, and then you run it back with 10 pounds on your leg lifts and 5 pounds on your arm lifts. So that's an upper and lower body split type.
But do y'all see the detail in that? Like, he's not just going to the gym and doing something willy-nilly. He has a plan out here that's going to progress him, and he has numbers to hit here.
Yep.
And it's not saying that you have to hit them all the time. It's not necessarily going to happen for everyone.
Right.
But you have to have structure. Without structure, like for me, I write down all my lifts.
Yep.
I need to know what I'm doing. I need to know, except for calves. I can keep that in my head. I don't write that down. Okay, I just do it. But
we know.
Yeah. My calves suck. Okay.
I'm kidding.
But just from this writing it in my phone, this week I got 225 for 12. Great. Next week, let's see if we can get 13. And by the time I get 15, we're gonna move. We're gonna move the weight up and do it all over again. And there's a system here. So I see too many people in the gym, they go and there's no system.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to hire me as a coach, but bro, if you want to be successful, figure out the system that works for you. And there's hundreds of different types of programs you can do. I gotta get you on that. Sorry to cut you off. What do you think about push-pull legs?
I did it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's a cool program to do. It lets you, again, if you enjoy doing...
All the kids do it.
Yeah, if you enjoy doing compound lifts, I think that there's value to it in the sense that you're hitting all 3 compound lifts, on a structure that means you're not necessarily overtraining. I think the thing that people may get carried away with is like, you still need to work in a deload. Like at some point, depending on the volume and weight you're working with, that's something that I used to think was like stupid. And when you're training for sports, it's easy to get caught up in that mentality of like, well, this is a day that I'm not doing anything. So I'm essentially like the whole, if you're not doing something today, you're getting worse. Like a day off is a day where you're getting worse. But the value of a deload is it's actually a day where you're getting better. You're preparing yourself for that next phase. And if you're working on the cycle that I am right now, where it's like a 4-week cycle, the 4th one's your deload, you're not only letting your body heal up from the third week, which is your peak week essentially, but you're preparing your body for the highest volume phase the next week. So there's value in that, right? So if I skip my deload and I'm like, I'm just going to run it in 3-week blocks, I know more than Jim Wendler does now. I've run it for 2 months, and now my following month isn't going to be as good. I'm probably going to start experiencing some tweaks that you get from overtraining. And then if you push through that, now you're really setting yourself back. And now you are actively working against what Kenny and I were talking about, which is training with purpose and making sure you have a set goal in mind. So like Kenny was saying, you keep a journal or keep it on your phone, or just...
We got technology.
There's online calculators you can use where it'll literally tell you, you enter in your training max and it'll tell you this is what you do. Okay, what's your new one? This is what you do. So
yeah.
A lot of good resources out there that you can use. And, like Kenny said, whether you use him for a program, which all of this stuff will be covered in, and he'll explain it to you, or you use a free one online just to see what you like to do and what makes you feel good, and what, there's value in that too. I would say even before you involve a coach, try if you...
I agree with that.
I'm sure, Kenny, you would want to know
I
that,
would
right?
rather someone get their feet wet before they come to me, and it's kind of selfish, but this means less work for me.
Right.
And if someone knows a little bit what they're doing and they have better understanding, I can just coach them better. Right. And I think that's really important. So for certain people, certain people just need a coach to just carry them through. But if you kind of want to get into it on your own and figure out stuff on your own, that's fine. Everyone has their own process. Everyone has what they want to do when it comes to fitness. I'll put this in too. I don't like push-pull legs. And I know that everyone loves it. It's so good, right? And science backs it. It's good. But for me, I don't enjoy it, so I don't do it. Right. And that's the only reason. I make push-pull legs programs for people.
Yeah.
Oh, but I hate it.
But you understand the value of it. Like,
yes.
That's the important thing. And that's ultimately what you want in a coach. Like, Kenny doesn't like the program. He knows a lot, so pick something that is fun and that he enjoys and he's getting results from. If scientists came out tomorrow and said the only way you're going to get big is to do push-pull legs, he'd be doing push-pull legs.
I'd be the first one on it.
He'd be at the top of the list. But that's not how it works. So there's a lot of ways to get big. I enjoyed it. I like deadlifting. As soon as deadlifting wasn't as comfortable for me and I started to feel some tweaks, I changed it up. Wendler will have you do deadlifts too and stuff like that, but it's on a progressive overload cycle where you feel like you can handle it a little bit better. So the trap that I fell into when I was writing programming for myself was you usually prescribe yourself more than you're supposed to be doing.
Oh my God, that is...
And you kind of feel like a bitch if you don't do more. Like if you leave the gym not feeling like you're almost going to throw up, and this is where you get into like the natural versus unnatural approach too. Like if you're a natural person, you have to work in a deload and you have to train with the perspective of, you can't necessarily do the Rich Piana 8-hour arm work.
That makes no sense.
It's like, it's criminal.
People do it.
And again, you want to do it one time for fun, just to say like, hey, yeah, I did it. Cool. But if you have the perspective of, I'm going to have 23-inch arms because I hit this a couple times, it's not realistic. Right. So I think that's the way that I like to train. And I think it's a very practical approach. If you find somebody who knows more than you, you feel safe with what they're prescribing you to do, and you feel good about the training you're doing, that's a sustainable model. And that's one that you're going to get big on.
And that was a great thing to say, because I think the best program is the program you enjoy because it's the one you're going to do consistently. Yep. And if you can't go to and everyone says, what's the best time to train? There's information about this. And I think the best time to train for a bulk is at night, and the best time for a cut is in the morning. But those are so minuscule. Like we're getting to the 9th degree here. But what matters is when you can train. Yeah. And do it at that time every single